Welcome to Adobe Livestream. I'm today's host, Flynn Tracy, and with us is photographer and designer Lena Alice. Hi,
Hi,
Lena.
Flynn.
How are you going?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. It's great to have you here. You have such spectacular photography, which we're going to dive into very soon. We're going to go through kind of how you get so much like color and sharpness in your images today. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really exciting.
And you've been in Australia for a while, but you're not originally from here. Where are you from?
Nah, I'm originally from Germany and I grew up in a small village. I moved into the city for my job. And I used to do packaging design as my full-time job. And aside from that, I got into photography very, very early with like 13 or 14. And borrowed my mom's camera all the time, and she didn't get it back. And I just really, really fell in love with portrait photography, which is still part of my work today, or most of my work. But yeah, throughout my travels, of course, kind of like everything changed a bit as well. Yes.
Mm, yeah. And we discovered you through Instagram as well at some stage and asked you to become a Adobe Stock Premium photographer. How did that come about?
Yeah, that was really exciting because I literally just came to Australia and I spent like a month in Sydney, and then I had this mail with the invitation to be an Adobe stock photographer, and I literally put this email into my junk and didn't pay any much more attention to it. And then I reread it and I was like, this is actually not advertising. This is quite serious here. So I was really excited to get in contact with them as they came across my Instagram, as you said before, and just really, really appreciated my work and all the content that I was already doing. So I was kind of like, they gave me another purpose and a bit more drive to just keep creating and just do what I love to do as well. So yeah, that was quite helpful for me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we love what you do, and we love
Yeah,
having you
thank you.
here as well. We're going to dive into sort of one of your photos. But just before we do, if at any stage you have any questions that you'd like to ask Lena about her work and her process, feel free to ask, and we'll try to
Yes.
we'll try to get to all of those. And we also want to share with you we're running a competition today. So the competition is really exciting. The competition is a big A1 signed print, and you can enter this competition by uploading your own edit. So the idea is that you use the hashtag Adobe APAC Live and upload to Behance or Instagram, and it needs to be an image that you own and that you've edited yourself. And we're going to show you some really interesting tips that Lena's going to show off, but you don't have to use them necessarily. So it can just be any image that you've edited
Yeah.
and show us the before and after. And it's pretty
Yeah.
exciting. I think you've signed the
Yes,
A1
and
as
it
well.
looks so good. Like I've never seen like a print of my picture, so that looked really, really cool. I
Yep.
wish I could grab it, but that's all good.
We should get you one. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll figure it out. We'll
maybe.
get you one as well. And so the terms and conditions are online, so please make sure you read those before you enter. So why don't we have a just quick chat about what you're going to take us through today before we dive deep in here?
Yeah, so we try to make it like less technical as we can, because I want you guys to just experience a workflow that I use, and maybe you can just grab some things out of it and just have a little bit of a like, just to find other or maybe different ways, or there was something that you didn't know before. And I literally start right at the beginning when we drag a picture in Photoshop. So the Camera Raw program opens and it allows you a lot more than the program itself as well. So it's another add-on. So we're gonna look into that, which is pretty cool because I use
Mm.
it quite a lot actually. And then we go right into colors and color adjustment in highlights, in the neutrals and shadows, all this kind of stuff, using layers and mask. And I also want to look into some color lookups that the program provides already itself, which is pretty cool. And I used to use it a lot. So, and it really helped me to find my own way, to find my own look that I now just constantly like have in my pictures.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we go after this right into the process of sharpening to get like a good structure in the picture, and then how we're going to export it, bring it to like upload your files as well, because I have some little tiny hacks that just make your work a bit more professional.
Yeah, it's great. There's absolutely some things in here that I haven't seen before, so I'm really
Hey, that's
excited.
cool.
Yeah, it's really nice. And so just a reminder, you can ask questions, so feel free to ask away
Yes, please feel
in
free.
the chat, and we'll see if we can fit in the answers to those questions. So let's start at the beginning.
Let's start.
You've got your
I'm ready.
RAF file sitting there.
Yes, so this is the raw file, and for everyone that's doing photography in a more professional way, if you do not shoot in RAW yet, I would suggest doing it, as it just provides much more opportunities to get the picture in the perfect conditions for your editing in Photoshop. And what I basically do, it's just really just opening the file in Photoshop itself, and then it just opens up all these different tools that you can use. And as we can see up here, top right, it's just like a representation of what your image looks like and where are the shadows, the neutrals, the highlights. It just gives you a bit of an idea. And as you can see, there are like a lot of dark parts, as we do not have a sky in the picture. So we work here with a lot of neutrals, which is one of the reasons why I choose this picture, as it makes it a bit more complicated for us to really find a good contrast and have a good color contrast as well. But now I'm gonna just show you what I'm doing, as I just try to bring the picture in like a very, very good condition. It's like preparing a canvas and just put on like a nice smooth color that we want to work with. So yeah, so and the thing is, I just really love how they made it so simple for every one of us, as we just have to drag sliders to the left or to the right, which makes it easy, and also just gives you a bit of a chance to just try things out and see the results straight away. So basically what I do here, I just go through the different sliders and I try to just lighten up parts where the detail was gone, and I just bring it back and see, oh, maybe there's something cool, something fancy that I really want to keep. Sometimes in between the light, the horizon, and then something that's in the middle ground. Sometimes when it's out of focus, it creates a nice bokeh, and you just want to keep these kind of things. And with RAW, you can actually bring it all back. And then I just click through all the different tools that the program provides. And the curve is just really a tool to just fine tune a bit in the light and like shadow parts, because it's separated in highlights, lights, dark, and shadows. So you actually have a bit more sensitive selection of the different areas of the picture. I do not do anything in sharpening here, as this is one of my last steps that I'm going to do in the editing, which I do in the program itself, which I just found way easier to really go through this process of retouching, editing colors, and then sharpening, and then exporting.
Sharpening right at the end, yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
exactly. And then what I do, though, quite a bit here, is that I already set up a bit of the color here, as I do have a chance to in a very, very simple way to work on the colors already, which is the HSL adjustment, which means the juice, the saturation, and the luminance. And this is basically that you have already an impact on the certain colors that are in the picture. You don't have to think about RGB, where we know the picture is based on RGB, but the program already provided the separation, and you don't really have to think, oh, if I add a bit of green, how would turn the color out in the end. So we have everything listed here, and then can basically just really, really try to get the tones where you feel comfortable with. Or I really prefer to have two colors dominating in my pictures, and I also prefer to put everything in the picture that I didn't just see, but also what I felt, what I could hear. And this like color is just this such a good tool to just convey that mood and feeling.
So you're recalling the day that you were there and trying to think about, was it warm or was it cool? Was it hot? Was there wind? All that sort of thing, right? And you're trying to put that into the image as much as you can.
Yeah. So at this moment, the sun was just right there, but because of the ocean breeze, it was kind of warm, cool, and like it just changed, which I think is a very cool thing, to have the cool rocks and then she in this warm orangey red dress.
Great.
And everything, like all I do here is just really work on the separate color tones in the picture. So I put up the saturation a bit of that dress, and I also can work on the light as well, which is super cool to just make her dress and the main object really pop out of the picture.
And so you'll play around with these quite a lot, and
yes,
it's a bit different each time.
It's always different. It's always a journey. It's always unpredictable. It's always forth and back, and I think that everyone should keep that in mind as well, that it's not, if you delete something again in the end or put something on top, it doesn't mean that you go backwards. Like, it's always like very experimental.
Right.
And so I'm pretty fearless here. Like, what do I have to lose? I can go back in like to normal.
Yeah.
We don't have to stress about anything here.
Great.
And then we have split toning. I don't do this because all it does is you can give the highlights or the shadows a color already, but because I have so many options in the program itself that I'm just avoiding doing this here already.
Right.
And then we have a few other things. You can even add grain and all this sort of stuff, which I do not use. So these are the things that I prefer to do this in Photoshop itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like ways that I figure out for myself. It might work for you, and for not for others. So it's always.
Yeah, so everyone doesn't have to necessarily do it exactly the same way. This is where you're at the moment. This is how you like to work. Yeah, what feels comfortable and the type of image and shot that you want to have in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Great.
No, it's pretty much. And this is what I do, and then we're pretty much good to go to open the image in the program itself. So this is like there was the unprocessed picture, and now we just set it up completely. Now we can't change a thing anymore, and now we have the chance to just keep on working on it.
Yep.
And this is where I come to the first part with this retouching, which I used to do a lot because I was I told you before, much more closer to my models, to the people I took pictures of, because in Germany I was never really inspired by nature. Like, I was always looking for these cool spots, and sometimes I found them, but I was I was never ever content with what I saw. And this is why I just kept close to the person, and I just really love to capture people in their faces in a natural way. So this is where I did a lot of retouching anyway. But because I was traveling, I was very limited in my space, and I just had this one backpack, and I didn't have this tablet with me, which I will show you later how I'm going to use it. But I had my MacBook, and I did everything on this. Everything that you, all my content you can see on Instagram, is not edited by a very complicated setup, or very you don't have to have a huge monitor or iMac. You can really do it in this way as well.
Yeah, so you don't need all that much, because I think we spoke about offline before. You had almost two giant screens and a Wacom and everything kind of happening.
I was pretty much properly set up.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to actually get used to it.
Right.
But at some point, you just get comfortable with what you do every day, and that was a good compromise for me. And it's just another challenge, really. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So I want to go right into the very famous tools that the program has, and a lot of these tools people don't really feel that they are very useful, but I found ways, and different areas in the picture that I use these tools for. So basically, we said before we made everything. So we hided all the other layers because it is actually such a long process, the whole editing. But I just want to give you like a very quick run through here.
Right. So yeah. So this is a pre-made file because there is a lot of layers which you're about to discover. Lena likes to work with lots of layers, and so what we might be doing is occasionally we'll Lena, not me, I'm not doing anything. We'll create a new layer and sort of we'll show off a bit of an effect, and then usually remove that, and we'll show you the one that was prepared earlier.
Exactly. So we can get right into the retouching. What I said before, we have like different tools here, and these are pretty much the most common tools anyway, which is the spot healing brush and the healing brush with is nothing more than just a very simple and helpful tool to get rid of things in the picture that you kind of want to get rid of very quickly. I'm gonna do this now as I just want to give you a bit of an example how it can work. I would not usually do it because it's super far away and you would never ever see this probably on that print, even if it's like super big.
Right.
But I just gonna show it to you because it is quite handy for a few things in your editing when you are closer to the object anyway. So these brush tools, they are pretty much super simple. You just choose a place on that picture, and you decide which part of the picture you want to replace. Mm-hmm. So this looks very simple, as you can see. And then we have the same tool, but a bit different, where the program actually decides for you which information it will take to replace this part that you don't want to have. So it just takes neighboring pixels or similar pixels and just replace it. I find this good in skin retouching if it's has to be super simple and it's not very complicated. So, but I do find that it loses a bit of the structure and the sharpness of the image. This is why I'm very cautious sometimes and don't do it too much.
So you wouldn't use it on the rocks or anything like that?
Yeah,
in
no.
this case,
no.
yeah, because you just lose a bit of the information. And,
Yeah,
the detail. Great.
Yeah, so with skin, it works quite good, and I'm pretty sure that the tool is built to edit skin.
Great.
Yeah. And then we have our beautiful.
Before we go in any deeper, we have a question from the audience from Janet. Who is your favorite photographer?
This is
photographers.
This is super hard to tell because we were just talking about it before. Like, I get inspired by so many photographers, but they work all in so many different ways. Like, some of them do like people, lifestyle, portrait. There is a photographer, he's French, I don't know his name, I'm super bad with names anyway, so I'm sorry for this. But he just captures his whole family in black and white pictures, and sometimes very detailed that you have to look like for 10 seconds to find out what it is.
Right.
And it's just, this is where I find my inspiration as well, because I try to go beyond my creative field where I work in, because this is where you get inspired and where you find things where you're like, wow, this is, like, I never thought about doing this.
Yeah.
You know, like, it just opens up like a whole nother world of creativity as well. So
it's not just portrait photographers that you would follow, you're interested in any photographers.
And different countries and all this sort of stuff. But if you really want to check out who I follow, you can just go on my Instagram and then look into my following, like the people who I follow, and you will find a few artists there.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Janet. So back to our editing and retouching.
Back to the retouching, and your probably most favorite tool, the clone stamp.
Yes. We were talking about this a little bit before.
Yes, because like, we are pretty sure that everyone has done it before and clone stamped a face on another person because it's super funny. And I'm going to show you how to do it today. No, we're not going to put another face on her, but
Show you how it's supposed to be used, I think. Yeah.
yes. So yeah, there are a lot of like bad words about it, but I found it very, very useful if you really need to get rid of something that is disturbing in your picture. And I choose to get rid of this white label here in the back of the dress. And everything what the clone stem does, it pretty much works exactly like the brush tools. You choose like the spot brush tool, where you choose where to take the informations of the picture, but with the difference that the program wouldn't melt these informations together. It would just put it on top how it is. And this is quite handy here, as we really, really need to give informations on top of this white label. Otherwise, it would just not disappear and it would be blurry and not sharp anymore. So we just create another layer, another empty layer here, just to make sure if something happens and you didn't do it the right way, we can still delete the layer, do it from the beginning.
And we'll probably talk about this a couple of times. So this is like a non-destructive way to work. So you can always go back. You can be very experimental. You can be, as you said before, you have no fear, nothing to lose. You can always go back. Yeah, which is a really important way to work.
No, this is exactly how you also have to think while you're creating. Like you don't have a canvas in front of you that if you once put the color on top, that you can't just scratch it off again. This is the good thing about digital photography, I think.
And this is the clone stamp tool.
This is the clone stamp. Yeah. Yes, I do this right now, and I follow the edge of her neck to just keep that shape of hers, and then I just really, really try to use to go in like similar parts that I can take and just put it on top somewhere where I might think, this fits. And now you can actually see, I took a few informations there, but you wouldn't necessarily recognize them, that they are the same. This is another thing, like you kind of have to look out that it doesn't look copied, that you don't use the same edges, and then we can just hide it and you can see what a difference it made. I still feel that this built just a little bit of a not like smooth gradient itself.
Okay.
So what I do, I just darken that part in via using another layer, which I will use the color black to apply via the gradient tool, a bit of black to it. And then we slowly just, we're gonna put it on multiply as well, so it really melts in the structure and doesn't take anything away. And then we just darken it up a bit. And this is pretty much what I'm doing. And if you zoom out, like no one would ever recognize it, but I think like getting rid of this of this label there is just really for my own pace.
Well, it's also attention to detail as well. Like it's a good habit to get into, spotting those sorts of things and learning how to do that.
And I also think like sometimes there are things in the picture that you might find a bit disturbing. Like I showed a picture of my partner in like fields, and he was playing the guitar, and there were beer bottles, and I was like, I need to get rid of these. Like I can't have them in the picture. And I started to like took one out with the clone stem. I just did it I did that pretty well, and I just made that layer on hide, and I was like, nah, this is how it was. Like sometimes you have to decide what you want to keep and what not. Like this kind of stuff is like, okay, we're going to get rid of it. But like if it really supports the mood of the whole situation and the moment, like why getting rid of it then?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is pretty much what I'm doing, and then we can just zoom in again to see what we have just done. And it's just very small changes, like very natural, but it just supports her as the main person in the picture and how she's lying there. And yes, and to support this, I use another technique, which is a bit more advanced, as we don't use the tools that are provided for retouching, but I found a way to work with light and shadow as well, to just even some parts of the picture. And this is via the some adjustment tools, which is Drew Saturation, where I just create another. I will just show you this real quick so you get a bit of an idea. So we add this adjustment layer, which allows us to use the blending mode here to either screen, so lighten up the picture, or multiply to darken the picture. But because we just want to work out light and shadows, we don't want to have an influence on the color itself. So we just lower the saturation. We work a bit on the opacity as well to just not make it too intense, and then we reverse the mask. We're going to come to the mask part later. But just to show you real quick how you can just make things a bit more even is by applying light and shadows in the parts to just even them. So now we choose, actually going to choose to lighten up areas. And then I use a brush, and I use my tablet for this. And this is where it gets a bit tricky not having it. A tablet, because you work with a brush, and I use a very soft brush. I lower it in the opacity as well, in the flow as well, to just not have it, to just get the chance to do it in a gentle way.
And if people at home don't have a tablet, can they still do it with a mouse?
They can still do it. It's not maybe that much fun. It's a bit of a tricky thing, but I have done it before. I used to do it a lot, and it's just working it out, and you get used to it as well. Yeah. So basically, what I do, I see these parts here that are a bit darker, and it makes it a bit like spongy. And we just want to even it. I'm not changing anything of her shape, of her face, or anything, and I'm just really, now you can see what's happening. Like it's such a small change, but it has a big impact on the whole appearance of the main object. And then I do it the other way around. I create an adjustment layer that will darken parts of the picture, and then I just work through it, and I even it a bit more till I'm happy. So these here, I'm gonna show you and hide them again to just see what I did. These are like super small changes, but I just got rid of a bit of this because we had to swim in the ocean before, and like her mascara was a bit like underneath her eyelashes, so I just got lightened up this a bit, but I didn't use any stamp or anything like this. So this is like my way of really having a very natural workflow to retouch.
So you're working with the color and the shapes and everything that's there, rather than replacing things.
Yes, yes. I always prefer to really have the person as the person is, and just rather than get rid of things, but just like really support their features as well.
Great.
And I always try to make the persons in front of my camera feel comfortable as well.
Yeah.
So this was there was always something that I had in my mind, because we all know in front of the camera, we look at the pictures, we be like, yeah, look. So this is always a thing that I do as well.
Great.
So just really like be in contact with people and show the pictures. Sometimes they see things that they don't really like how they move and all this stuff, and and it's also good to get another opinion as well, and just sometimes you have this view and it just opens up a bit as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And how many shots would you take to get to one that you're happy with in camera?
So I just have a really big SD card with me, so I don't have to think.
Yeah.
And I just take pictures, and usually it comes to 500 to 600, and
wow.
I'll have a selection of 10 max.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a lot of photos to get to a small amount in the end. Yeah.
Yeah. But sometimes you look through the pictures like years after, and you're like, oh, this is a good shot as well. Like, why didn't I think about editing this at this time? And then I re-edit them, and then you just have all these like content
that's great.
that you can work with later on. Yeah. So this is also like, this is already everything that I do regarding retouching, and then now it's just really all about getting into colors. And just to have a bit of a wrap up for you guys, I basically, first thing I zoom out, because now it's really about the whole mood of the picture, and I just have to see from a distance how certain colors work with each other. And I do use all these adjustment tools that you see over here, and there's quite a good range of different tools that work in different ways. So to make it easy for you guys, I work with the selective color, probably the most, and then we have the color balance as well. You have curves and the channel mixer. So these are basically the tools that I work the most with.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it's all about, it's same thing. It's really just figuring out like where you want to go, but rather than having this picture in your head before how it has to look like, please just invite yourself on this little journey of, I actually have no idea how my picture will look like in the end. I needed to learn this. I'm still in this process of learning it, and just be a bit fearless and really like invite myself to have fun as well, and just be experimental, because this is where you grow. This is where you find out more tools and things and what works best for you. It's try and error. It's back and forth. And yeah. So I just start to just really click through the different tools that are given to us, which is, for example, the selective color, which I will show you in a bit, because this is probably the best tool for me, as I really try to get this color contrast in. I have two colors dominating in my pictures most of the time, which is 90% of my work, a very warm color and a cold color, which builds probably the highest color contrast anyway. So in this case, we have like these neutral, they're pretty gray still, these rocks, but I want to add a bit of more like cool things in there, like bluish tones, to have a contrasting with the red dress. So this tool like really provides us a separation of the certain tones that we have in the picture, and it also gives us the opportunity to really work also with the whites, the neutrals, and the blacks as well. So you can actually add color or decrease color in the whites, which is a thing that I really love using, as the light always kind of has a color. Like, it's not a light, it doesn't necessarily have to be 100% white.
Right.
And this is how I get my mood into my pictures as well. This is a big part of it. And then I literally just click through all the channels and drag the slider again. Just really have a go, and you can see, if I really want to have her popping out, because she is like made out of red tones in the picture. So I can really selective already change the colors here. But I can also go into let's check out the neutrals. We were saying before, there is a lot of happening in the picture based on the neutrals. So we can have quite a big impact already on the whole appearance of the picture, because we have so much information in the neutrals. So this is a great thing. And then this is how the channel mixer looks like. It's pretty much representing each color that the picture is based on, which is red, green, blue, which we all kind of know. And it just represents that the purity of the color, and you can change the purity of the color. You can add or decrease the other existing tones to make your color look more brightful or less brightful. So, for example, this is my 100% red that we have. And if we lower this,
so you have to turn it on to see the
yes,
change.
that would have been a good call. Should have done that before, but now you can see, like, you can do very, very like global, and there is a lot of happening already. This is what I do there. We go back to normal, and I just literally very enjoy using these I just work with these sliders.
Mm.
Like I really, really love this workflow where you just don't have complicated things, and this is what I want you to explore as well. That it doesn't have to be super complicated.
Right.
Like Photoshop has so many fancy opportunities and ways how to get somewhere, and you can make it so complicated, but you can also find a way of being like working in a professional way and have a good outcome still.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So so I work in a way to just like create a whole mood, like a colorful contrast already, and then I go back and just really focus on the whole mood and how I want to have my picture in the end, which is my own look, my own style that I found, the dominating colors and this sort of stuff. And I want to look into color lookups in the program itself, as this really, really helped me at the beginning where I wasn't sure and I was very insecure of what I was doing, which helped me to just get an idea of how my pictures can actually look like, because I didn't have the actual tools and I didn't know the program that well. And I started using color lookups, which is basically a thing which you find also in these adjustment tools. Under this section, and then it opens up a window where you have like heaps of options.
So many different options.
I know, yeah, and it is so different as well. Let me just find this layer again. Yes, so this is an example, like probably one where you really need to have something like changed on the blending mode to make it work. This is another thing. You don't even you don't only have the color lookup itself. You also have the opacity to change. You have the blending mode where you can put this on top of the picture, and you decide how this layer interacts with all the layers underneath. So
just before we go on to that, we have another question. If someone was going to change the toning of the model's dress but not her skin, is it necessary to use a mask? We are going to get to masks in a moment.
Yeah, so if you really want to have it in a very, very detailed way, you could use a mask, which you can do via the channels to just choose probably the red mask, and then already choose this part of the picture. But because the red dress and the skin, I feel that it works quite well together, because I came to the point where I had this dress in the color how I wanted to have it, but then her skin was a bit too magenta-ish. So I kind of needed to find this compromise in between, as this is still one object, and I would not necessarily separate these two because I think they still work together.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
And thanks for the question. And back to the color profiles. At first look, they're quite extreme, aren't they? The color lookup.
Yes.
But what seems to be a recurring theme in a lot of what you're doing a lot of layers, but very delicate.
Yes.
Very small changes with opacity down quite a lot. So you have a lot of control. Is that kind of seems to be how you work?
So I don't know, I really try to edit in a way where I do it step by step and very slowly. So even if I have things in the end that I don't like, and then instead of getting rid of a whole curve, because I managed to do a lot of things there, like I go very backwards, but having more steps, I know it's probably a massive file in the end, but you can still, just get rid of things in the end or merge things together. But to have it now in this process of editing before you get to the end, I just prefer doing this like very step by step. And as you said, the color lookups as well. Like I have this color lookup that I choose to just have a bit more depth in it, and it also separated these two in a kind of way, like the background and the main object. And so you can see the opacity is on 34%, which is not much, but if I would have it on 100, it would be like very fun.
Yeah.
It's good to have it on 100 at the beginning, so you see what the actual film, like what the look is doing.
Yeah.
But
Right.
then you just be very gentle of like how you apply it to the picture, and then you see that I applied another one.
Yeah, so
On top.
applying the same, well, not
Ruthless.
exactly the same. This is what you get when you're fearless. It's as many
Yeah,
layers as you like.
yeah. Now, at some point, I'm self-taught. I like, I just figured out ways, like better and worse.
Yeah.
But I just decided, look, if I really work in a way, having all these rules in my head of what to do and not to do, I would just like very limit myself in like my own creation. So I just decided I just do whatever I want to do. If it turns out that my pictures would have a bad quality in the end, or there would just something happening that is like really not cool, I would maybe adjust it later. But first of all, I just really want to make sure that I do what I love to do and what I see in the picture.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. And then same thing again, we work with colors to just adjust and support what we just slowly want to get into the picture. So this is the filter, the first filter that I choose, which is provided by the camera I use, which is the Fuji X-T1. And then I choose the Horror Blue, as this one really puts a layer on top which brings very cold tones in the picture. And this is kind of what I wanted to see there, to have this little warm, cold thing happening in the picture.
Is that something that you are just doing for this image, or is that something that you do for some of your other pieces of work?
It's always different.
It's always different, yeah.
Like when I take pictures, I never know, like I never take pictures and have this in my mind how I would edit. Like it's all very an instinctive process. And I just do it and live with the consequences, to be honest.
Yeah, great.
Which is cool. Like it's always a journey, and it's always learning and growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful way to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's unpredictable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just really keep going by now where I decided, okay, I want to have this little bit of death and darkness, and I want to support the mood that I created already kind of in this picture, rather than just working against it. So I have a lot of neutrals. We have to make sure that it's not just like melting into each other. We want to have a contrast. So I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to work with that. I'm going to work it out. I'm going to give the neutrals a bit of color, and I'm going to make it work. So now what I did, I started to use some curves as well to just, and I didn't have much highlights in here, as you can see here. This is where usually the information's about highlights were. We don't have much highlights, but I'm still brave enough to even lower down the highlights. Because I'm like, look, I wanna support this mood that I have here anyway. So this is literally what happens.
And again, a very subtle, very kind of very light touch.
Yeah. And then and this is the cool thing, the more you apply these selective color tools, the more you really select and separate the different tones. So it makes it easier and easier to actually adjust the certain tones that you want to adjust. So now, because we already created this bluish tones in like this part where I want to have this contrast blue on red. So now it's so much easier for me to go in these parts of the picture in the selective tool again, because now it can actually detect much easier to grab these tones. And so it's just very simple to make this work like better and better. So this is what I'm doing with these two. And just experimenting. And sometimes I even check out the whites again and see like if I can adjust something here, if there are still some whites in the blue parts as well.
Yeah.
And then we come to the point where I'm like, I was super fancy, and most of the time when I'm at this point of my editing, I'm like, it's actually a lot of color happening in there.
Right.
Like I love colors, love this contrast, but we still have to settle down a bit. And this is where I just very easy apply dew saturation and just lower it a bit. It's on -6. You can see it here. It's just a very, very small, simple thing. Yeah, this is what I do there. And then we have a few masks. I'm just gonna show them straight away. And
so these are all your masks.
All my masks.
Turning them all on.
It's not all. So I didn't work with like selective parts of the mask. Just a few where you can see where I did these parts. But to go back to the question, like I usually work with by applying, like by working with this gradient tool, and just add some of it or just get rid of something.
Right.
In like layers that maybe darkens the picture. In some of the pictures, it's just like too dark in areas where I didn't focus enough on at the beginning. And now I'm like, oh, now I'm actually a bit too dark. So now I have to like lighten it up a bit. And I'm going to show you real quick how I do it. I just add another adjustment layer. I put it on screen because I don't want to work on the color itself. I lower the saturation to really make sure I'm just going to adjust and have an impact on the light. And then I slowly apply the gradient tool in parts where I think, oh, this could have a bit more light. This is very rough, but because we work with a very soft and smooth gradient, it's fine. Like and you can see a massive difference as well. So this is what I really enjoy having this like this chance to work with masks.
And it's very natural because you're using this gradient tool, so it's a gradual thing. Yeah, great.
Yeah. And this is where I work a bit more selective. Like if I want to have her surrounded by like a darker background, this is what I did here with this mask that you can see here. It's very rough, I know, but it works.
It works, yeah.
Like you would not see it in the picture. Like no one would, like even an expert, I think, would look like, I think there's actually a gradient tool and I can see the edge of it. So I think we're pretty good there, and it's a very, very good tool to just work selective and not in like a very global and in the main areas.
That's great. And before we move on to the next step, we just have another question from Sweet from the chat room. Thanks for the other question. Says, hopes to not jumping the process. Is it necessary to process the image in CMYK if printing is the end result?
I used to do it because it's actually, I don't know, there's this preview in Photoshop itself that is Command and Y, where you have a review of how the picture would look like in CMYK. This is how I do it. So I don't know if it's like 100% necessary, but what my experience is, it's always better to already see the outcome, because we work with colors that are like represented by a screen. Works much different than printers that actually have not that much opportunity of like the whole color.
Yeah.
The amount of colors that are actually able to print. And basically what you do, you just work with Command Y and just check if there's a huge difference. You can even open your picture like, twice, and then just check out to have RGB and CMYK, and just make sure if you don't want to have a surprise that you don't want to have, you just make sure that it's like pretty much the same.
Great, perfect, and thanks for the question. Are we still on masks, or are we on to sharpening?
We are now we are actually at the fancy sunflare that I added.
Oh yeah, the sunflare. Yeah, of course.
I just wanted to bring that in to just be a bit like more free in what you can do, and just to feel free to do whatever you want to do. And I decided to add a sun flare as the sun was there. It was just a bit not in the right angle for me to capture both. But I was like, look, I'm just gonna do it. So, which I did via just a empty layer that I add, and then I go on screen, or I multiply the layer because it always works different. I choose a yellow tone. I'm going to apply it with my gradient tool as well. I'm going to, oh, this is the wrong color. So I'm just going to hide that. Yes, and then we just apply it via the gradient tool. I have it on screen, which means it will like lighten up the picture, but you can also see like it already melts really into the picture, and the rocks already take on the color. And then it's just about other layers that you add. You can just duplicate the same layer and just work with another blending mode to just make it more real. And you also have the chance, if you want to have like the sun with a bit of a different color, you can just adjust the color via Juice Saturation. Juice Saturation is just it's a pretty cool tool that I never realized that I use so much actually.
Yeah.
For like pretty much everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, such a simple tool, so useful. Then I just added another grain layer because we still work with color that we actually added after the picture. It doesn't have the same condition as the picture before. You know, it just doesn't have the sharpness. It just doesn't have the blur and all this sort of stuff. So I just tried to make it a bit more real. And that's pretty much it.
Right.
We had the sharpening process.
So sharpening is one of the very last steps that you do. We saw some of those options originally in the raw and everything like that, but just over time you found that sharpening, very delicate thing to do right at the end.
Yeah, or adding grain or something, because you just wanna have this is fine tuning. You know, you want to have everything done. You want to have all the structures that you have already in there. Sometimes you wanted to get rid of some structures, but it's just so much easier for your own workflow and for your own work to make it look professional. And I basically just use the high pass, which I think is not even the most common tool, but I do work with that because I think it's very sensitive in the way how it detects the edges, which we want to have sharpened in the picture. We don't want to have unnecessary things in the picture, so we really just want to detect these edges, which I did here, which you do just by merging all your layers together. I use the shortcut Shift, Alt, Command, and E, and it will provide you a beautiful layer without flatting anything what you have underneath, which is great because you don't want to get rid of it yet. So you're still in this process of editing. Last step though, and then it's kind of very sneakily hidden because it's not even under like in the sharpening section, but it is. You will find it here, and it's called high pass, which gives you the chance to really decide in which radius of the pixels you want to work. I work in a radius of 2 to 2.5. It really depends, but because I have already a lot of structure here anyway, so I will be very gentle with this one. So we click OK. We have this super beautiful gray layer that we're just gonna melt into the picture via the blending mode soft light. And then let's just zoom in there real quick. And then you just see the difference. Like it just really brings up a few of the highlights. It just makes things that I really want to have this bit of like sharp crunchiness in it. And this is basically what I do. I actually don't even work with the other provided typical sharp
like
filters.
the tooltip and everything like that. Yeah,
no, I found this the easiest way. It's very gentle how I see my pictures anyway. I don't want to have it too sharp and too like it just gets I don't know. It just works against what I feel like having in my picture, like this bit of like soft and nature, and yeah.
This is great. And so, so what happens next? So you've got this beautiful, sharp, wonderful contrast, lots of color.
Lots of color.
You've got your light source in there, and so we're exporting. Like, let's say exporting to Instagram. What's your procedure?
So I usually just save as a JPEG, high quality. I airdrop it to my phone and just double check If the colors are still the same, if I'm happy with it and all this sort of stuff. But sometimes, like, as I said before, like I compare my work to my feed, like to the pictures I had before, and just make sure, oh, I go the same way. Maybe I edit this time something that I haven't done before. And then it's just really about just make sure that you use your high-res file. You can still, after this, delete it from your phone, as it's probably would be around 10 to 18 megabyte, that we don't want to have hundreds of these on our phone. But I feel it's very necessary. If you want to have a high-quality feed on Instagram, I would use this way of like exporting and bring it onto your phone. And then I also recommend, which I used to do at the beginning or quite a lot, even months ago, that I would add another filter on top sometimes.
So is that like an Instagram filter?
Yeah, like an Instagram filter. But I think there is just a lot of quality missing. Like it's just the quality is not there anymore. Same thing is if you export the picture on your phone and then use another app to, like there are apps that I really love to use, but in the end, see it on my desktop, like on Instagram, I was like, this is not the quality anymore.
Right.
Like it really lowers down in the quality that you try to like aim for and achieve. To
you work so hard
yes,
to get.
Yes, you work so hard on Photoshop. Yeah, so I would recommend not doing that and just really finish your product on Photoshop, export it, and upload it.
That's great. Yeah, there's been so many tips and advice and things for everyone to dig through. This will be available online as well. So if you missed anything, you had to jump out and get something to eat or anything like that, this will be online for you to review, and you can pause it and slow things down, everything like that. But any kind of parting advice for people that want to sort of be doing what you're doing? Any kind of last tips?
Yeah, so it would definitely be less technical. And I would say, like, I was struggling with creation because I was holding on to what other people would say or what other people are doing. And I really needed to separate myself from what others are doing. And I really needed to find like a look like in my pictures that I was happy with, that I felt content with, that I was proud of, that made me feel confident in what I was doing. Because as soon as you trust yourself and what you're doing and you like what you're doing, you don't rely on others' view on it, or, you know, and I just, when I edit my pictures and I finish this editing and I'm happy with it, I will not try to listen of my judging mind that just starts right after this when I was happy with it.
Right.
So you just really have to just trust yourself and do what you want to do and upload it and love what you upload. You're not there to create, to show it to others and get comments and likes. It's more about, this is what I love to do and I would love to share it with you. You either like it or you don't. And that's probably, I'm working on this every day, but the more I learn it and the more I get comfortable, I'm much more relaxed and it's less pressure on myself, and I just can create very freely and what I want to do and get more ideas, and my creativity just like keeps flowing.
I think that's great advice for creatives everywhere, not just photographers.
Yeah, probably.
It's good life advice.
Yeah. Hey, that's good.
That's cool. And just a reminder that we're running the competition, and so the competition's running for a week, and you can win the artwork. It's going to be that is signed.
Yeah.
And we can send that off to you. So all you need to do, just a reminder of that, is edit your own photo. So it could be a portrait photo, could be anything. It just needs to be yours, and upload it to Instagram or Behance. Make sure you use the hashtag Adobe APAC Live so we see it. And you have
I'm
until
excited.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We're looking forward to see what you all come up with. So you have until Wednesday the 20th to enter. But if people want to find out more about you, where should they go on the internet? Obviously Instagram. What's your handle? How do they find you?
So Instagram is probably my main tool, which is Lena_Alice, like Alice in Wonderland. And then I have a German content blog, which is lenaalice.com. But I also have more international content, which is on artdirectionlena.com. And then there's still my Facebook artist page that is a bit quiet because Facebook just got a bit more quiet. It's still there. I'm happy if you join me there as well. Maybe I give it another go at some point, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
So there we go.
Yeah.
And last thing I have from the chat is Lewis says you have amazing photos, and I agree with Lewis.
Hi, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you once more, Lena.
Hi, thank you, Flynn.